Governor Vextar Cole stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking out at the stars. 3 months had passed since his empire made contact with the humans from the Sol system. He still remembered that day clearly. The human ships had been small and weak. Their weapons were primitive. Their technology was laughable compared to the mighty Zephyrian Empire. The Empire ruled over 10,000 star systems. They had been expanding for centuries, taking over weaker species and adding their worlds to the Empire. The humans would be no different. Cole had already started planning how to divide their solar system among his officers. A junior officer approached him carefully. "Governor, we are receiving strange readings from the human border." Cole did not turn around. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures that do not match anything in our database, sir. The patterns are unlike the human technology we observed 3 months ago." Cole finally turned to face the officer. The young Zephyrian looked nervous. "Show me these readings." The officer led him to the sensor station. The screen displayed a map of human space with several blinking dots. Each dot represented an energy source that the sensors could not identify. "When did these readings begin?" Cole asked. 2 days ago, sir. They appeared suddenly across multiple human worlds. Cole studied the display. The readings were strong, much stronger than anything the humans had shown before. But that was impossible. The Empire had thoroughly scanned human capabilities during first contact. They had primitive fusion reactors and basic propulsion systems, nothing that could generate this kind of energy. "Are you certain these readings are coming from human space?" "Yes, sir. The coordinates match perfectly with known human colonies." Cole dismissed the officer with a wave of his hand. This was probably just some kind of sensor error. The humans were too weak to develop new technology so quickly. Perhaps they had found some ancient alien artifacts. Many primitive species stumbled across old technology they could not understand. Meanwhile, on the other side of human space, Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his command center deep inside a massive space station. The station was hidden in an asteroid field, invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes. He had been preparing for this day for over 20 years. The plan was finally in motion. Lieutenant Katie Brooks approached his chair. She was young but skilled, one of the best communication officers in the human fleet. "Admiral, we have successfully intercepted Zephyrian communications regarding the energy signatures." "What are they saying?" Katie handed him a data pad. "Governor Cole thinks it might be sensor errors or ancient artifacts. He is not taking the reading seriously." Morrison smiled slightly. "Perfect. What about Commander Pierce's intelligence network?" "All agents are in position, sir. We have been monitoring Zephyrian military communications for the past week. They are planning to begin their invasion of human space within 6 months." Morrison nodded. The Zephyrians thought humans were weak and defenseless. They had no idea that the ships they encountered 3 months ago were deliberately outdated vessels. Every piece of technology the humans had shown was carefully chosen to make them appear primitive. The truth was very different. Humanity had been watching the Zephyrian Empire for over 50 years. They had studied their technology, learned their languages, and mapped their military strategies. The Empire thought they were the hunters, but they were actually the prey. "Sir," another officer called out, "we are receiving a priority message from Scout Fleet 7. Morrison turned to the main screen. The face of Captain Alex Turner appeared. Turner commanded one of humanity's newest ships, a vessel that the Zephyrians had never seen. "Admiral, we are in position at the designated coordinates. The Zephyrian patrol ship is approaching our location. Should we proceed with the reveal?" Morrison looked around his command center. Every officer was watching him, waiting for the order that would change everything. For months they had been preparing for this moment. The Zephyrians had been allowed to believe they were superior. Now it was time to show them the truth. "Begin Phase 1 of Operation Awakening," Morrison said calmly. On the main screen, Turner nodded. "Understood, sir. Beginning reveal protocol now." The transmission ended and Morrison stood up from his chair. Around him, the command center buzzed with activity as officers began implementing the plan they had practiced hundreds of times. Lieutenant Brooks looked up from her station. Admiral, we are also detecting increased Zephyrian patrol activity along our borders. It seems Governor Cole is sending more ships to investigate the energy readings. Let them come, Morrison replied. The more ships they send, the better. We want them to see what we really are. Commander Ryan Pierce, the head of human intelligence, entered the command center. He was a quiet man who rarely showed emotion, but today there was excitement in his eyes. Admiral, our agents throughout Zephyrian space are reporting unusual activity. Military commanders are asking questions about human capabilities. Some are beginning to wonder if their initial assessment was correct. Morrison walked to the large viewing window that looked out into space. Somewhere out there, Captain Turner was about to give the Zephyrians their first real look at human technology. After today, nothing would be the same. How long until Captain Turner makes contact with the patrol ship? Morrison asked. Brooks checked her console. Approximately 15 minutes, sir. Morrison took a deep breath. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment. They had built ships in secret, developed new technologies, and placed agents throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrians thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would be easy to conquer. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The viewing window showed only stars and empty space, but Morrison knew that somewhere in that darkness, the future of both species was about to be decided. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy through fear and conquest for centuries, but humanity had a different idea about how the galaxy should be run. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Valiant. The ship was massive, 3 times larger than any vessel the Zephyrians had ever built. Its hull was made from materials that did not exist in any Zephyrian database. The weapon systems alone contained more firepower than most Zephyrian battle fleets. But the Zephyrians did not know this yet. Captain, his navigation officer called out, Zephyrian patrol ship is approaching. Distance, 50,000 kilometers and closing. Turner nodded. Drop the stealth field. Let them see us. Across the bridge, his crew worked at their stations. These were some of humanity's best officers, trained for this exact moment. They had practiced this scenario dozens of times, but this was the real thing. Stealth field deactivated, sir, the tactical officer reported. We are now visible on all sensors. Turner smiled. He could imagine the shock on the Zephyrian bridge right now. One moment their sensors showed empty space. The next moment, a ship larger than anything they had ever seen appeared right in front of them. On the Zephyrian patrol ship, Subcommander Theknor stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. The human ship had appeared from nowhere, but that was impossible. The Empire had the best stealth detection technology in the galaxy. Run a full scan of that vessel, Theknor ordered his crew. His sensor officer worked frantically at his console. After several minutes, he looked up with confusion in his eyes. Sir, the readings make no sense. The ship is generating energy levels that exceed our most powerful battleships. The hull appears to be made from unknown materials. I cannot identify their weapon systems. Theknor felt a cold fear growing in his chest. 3 months ago, the humans had shown them primitive fusion reactors and basic laser weapons. This ship was impossibly advanced. Perhaps it is not human, his first officer suggested. Maybe they encountered another species and stole this technology. Before Theknor could respond, a communication signal came from the human ship. The face that appeared on his screen made his blood freeze. It was clearly human, but the being spoke perfect Zephyrian without any translator. Greetings, Subcommander Theknor of the patrol ship Crimson Wing, the human said. I am Dr. Lisa Morgan of the United Earth ship Valiant. We need to talk. Theknor stared at the screen. How did this human know his name? How did she know the name of his ship? And how could she speak Zephyrian so perfectly? You are human, Theknor said slowly. But this ship, this technology. Dr. Morgan smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Yes, we are human, and this is human technology. I believe your empire made some incorrect assumptions about our capabilities. Captain Turner stepped into view beside Dr. Morgan. He was a large man with calm eyes that seemed to see everything. Subcommander, your government has been making plans to invade our space. We know about these plans. We know about your military preparations. We know more about your empire than you might think. Thecnor felt his hands shaking. This was impossible. Humans were primitive. His government had told him so. The evidence was clear from their first contact. "You are lying," Thecnor said, but his voice lacked confidence. "Your ships were weak. Your technology was basic." Dr. Morgan tilted her head slightly. "Those ships were indeed basic, Sub-Commander. We showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. Your empire has a history of attacking species it considers weak. We needed to know what kind of people you were before we revealed our true nature." Turner stepped forward. "Dr. Morgan has studied your culture for over 30 years. She knows your history, your military tactics, and your expansion patterns better than most Zephyrians. We have been watching your empire for a very long time." On his bridge, Thecnor's crew was panicking. The sensor readings from the human ship were beyond anything in their experience. One of his officers whispered that their weapons would be useless against such advanced shields. "This cannot be real," Thecnor said. "Prove to me that this ship is truly yours." Turner nodded to his tactical officer. "Fire a demonstration shot at that asteroid." The Zephyrians watched as the human ship aimed at a large asteroid floating nearby. There was no visible weapon discharge, no energy beam they could see, but suddenly the asteroid simply vanished. It did not explode or break apart. It was there one moment and gone the next. Thecnor's sensor officer checked his readings 3 times before speaking. "Sir, the asteroid has been completely disintegrated at the molecular level. I have never seen anything like this." Dr. Morgan appeared on the screen again. "That was our lowest power setting, Sub-Commander. We could have achieved the same result with that patrol ship of yours, but we prefer not to destroy life unnecessarily." The words hit Thecnor like a physical blow. This human was telling him that his ship, his crew, his entire life could be erased with the same effort it took to destroy a rock. "What do you want from us?" Thecnor asked. Captain Turner answered. "We want your empire to reconsider its plans for our space. We want your leaders to understand that humanity is not the weak prey they believe us to be. Most importantly, we want them to know that we have been preparing for this conversation for a very long time." Turner paused, letting his words sink in. "Sub-Commander, how many patrol ships did Governor Cole send to investigate the energy readings in our space?" Thecnor hesitated. This information was classified, but looking at the impossible ship before him, he realized that classifications might not matter anymore. 12 ships, including mine," he admitted. Dr. Morgan smiled again. "Thank you for your honesty. You should know that 11 other ships like ours are currently introducing themselves to your fellow patrol commanders. Your entire fleet is receiving the same demonstration you just witnessed." Thecnor felt the last of his confidence collapse. 12 human ships, each one more powerful than anything the Empire possessed. And if Dr. Morgan was telling the truth about studying their culture for 30 years, then the humans knew far more about the Empire than the Empire knew about humans. "I must report this to Governor Cole," Thecnor said. Turner nodded. "Please do. But Sub-Commander, make sure you tell him everything. Tell him about our technology. Tell him that we know about the invasion plans. And tell him that this is just the beginning." The communication ended, leaving Thecnor staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. Turner turned to Dr. Morgan. "How do you think the governor will react?" Dr. Morgan checked her tablet, which was displaying intercepted Zephyrian communications from across their space. "According to our intelligence network, similar demonstrations are happening throughout their territory. Governor Cole is about to receive 12 impossible reports from 12 different patrol commanders." Turner looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrian Empire was beginning to realize that they had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were hunting sheep, but they had stumbled upon wolves instead, and the wolves had been waiting for them. Vemperor Zixthul. Vor sat on his throne in the great palace on the capital world of the Zephyrian Empire. The throne room was enormous, with walls that reached toward the sky and windows that showed the busy traffic of thousands of ships coming and going from the planet. The emperor was old, having ruled the empire for over 60 years. He had conquered dozens of species and added hundreds of worlds to his domain. Nothing had ever truly threatened his power, until today. General Kekmar Zahn rushed into the throne room, his face pale with worry. Behind him came a dozen military advisors, all carrying data pads and looking terrified. "My Emperor," General Zahn said, dropping to one knee. "We have an emergency situation." Emperor Vor looked down at his military commander. General Zahn had served him for 30 years and had never shown fear like this before. "Speak," the Emperor commanded. General Zahn stood up and activated a holographic display in the center of the room. The display showed a map of the Empire with dozens of red warning lights blinking across different star systems. "Sire, we have received reports from patrol fleets throughout our territory. All reports describe the same impossible situation. Human ships have appeared in our space, demonstrating technology that far exceeds our own capabilities." Emperor Vor leaned forward in his throne. "Explain." One of the military advisors stepped forward nervously. "My Emperor, the humans have ships that are 3 times larger than our biggest battleships. Their weapons can destroy asteroids without any visible energy discharge. Their shields make our most powerful weapons useless." The Emperor stared at the holographic display. Each red light represented a patrol fleet that had encountered these impossible human ships. There were dozens of them, scattered across the Empire. "This cannot be correct," Emperor Vor said slowly. "We examined human technology 3 months ago. They had primitive fusion reactors and basic weapons. They were no threat to us." General Zahn touched a control on his data pad. The holographic display changed to show recordings from the patrol encounters. Emperor Vor watched in stunned silence as human ships appeared from nowhere, spoke perfect Zephyrian, and demonstrated weapons that could erase matter itself. "How is this possible?" the Emperor whispered. At that moment, another advisor rushed into the throne room. She was breathing heavily and looked like she had been running. "My Emperor," she gasped. "We have an even bigger problem. One of their ships has appeared in the Korvax system." Emperor Vor felt his blood turn cold. The Korvax system contained the Empire's most secret military research facility. It was protected by 3 battle fleets and had sensor equipment that could detect anything approaching from light years away. "That is impossible," General Zahn said. "Nothing can penetrate Korvax defenses without being detected." The advisor activated her own holographic display. It showed the Korvax system with a single human ship sitting directly above the research facility. As they watched, the human ship began transmitting data. "What are they transmitting?" Emperor Vor demanded. The advisor's voice shook as she answered. "They are sending our own research data back to us, my Emperor. Complete blueprints of our experimental weapons, technical specifications of our new starship designs, everything we have been working on for the past 5 years." Emperor Vor stood up from his throne so quickly that several advisors stepped backward. "They have been spying on us?" General Zahn was reading from his data pad, his face growing paler by the moment. "Sire, our intelligence division has discovered something even worse. They have found evidence that some of our own people may not be who we think they are." "What do you mean?" "Some individuals in government positions, people we have known for years, appear to have been human agents. Our xenobiologists are reporting that advanced human technology could allow them to disguise themselves as Zephyrians." The throne room fell into complete silence. Emperor Vor looked around at his advisors, his generals, his trusted officials. How many of them were actually human spies? How long had the humans been watching them? "My Emperor," another voice called from the entrance to the throne room. A communications officer ran in, holding a message crystal. "Priority transmission from Admiral Morrison of the human fleet." Emperor Vor had never heard that name before, but something about it made him feel cold inside. "Play the message." The holographic display changed to show a human male in a military uniform. He was standing on what appeared to be a ship's bridge, but the technology visible behind him was unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. "Emperor Vor," the human said in perfect Zephyrian. "My name is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. I believe we need to have a conversation." Emperor Vor stared at the image. The human looked calm and confident, like someone who held all the advantages in a negotiation. 3 months ago, Admiral Morrison continued, you met what you believed were representatives of a primitive human civilization. I regret to inform you that this was not entirely accurate. The ships and technology we showed you were deliberately outdated, designed to test how your empire treats species it considers weak. General Zahn made a choking sound. Several advisors began whispering frantically to each other. Admiral Morrison smiled slightly. We have been aware of your empire for over 2 centuries, Emperor Vor. We have studied your expansion patterns, your military tactics, and your treatment of conquered species. We needed to know what kind of people you were before revealing our true capabilities. The holographic display changed to show images of human ships throughout Zephyrian space. Dozens of vessels, each one larger and more advanced than anything the Empire possessed. As you can see, Morrison said, we have been preparing for this conversation for a very long time. Your Empire's plans to invade human space are well known to us. We know about your military preparations, your resource allocations, and your timeline for conquest. Emperor Vor felt his legs becoming weak. He sat back down on his throne, staring at the impossible images before him. However, Morrison continued, we are not here to threaten you. We are here to offer you a choice. Your empire can continue on its current path and face the consequences, or you can join us in building something better. The message ended, leaving the throne room in stunned silence. Emperor Vor looked around at his advisors and generals. These were the people who had helped him rule the galaxy for decades. Now they all looked lost and confused. My Emperor, General Zahn said quietly, our long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching the edge of our territory. The energy signatures match the human ships we have encountered. Emperor Vor closed his eyes. In one day, everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had been proven wrong. The humans were not primitive prey. They were hunters who had been watching the Empire from the shadows for centuries. How large is this fleet? He asked. General Zahn checked his datapad. When he looked up, his face was white with terror. My Emperor, preliminary scans suggest over 3,000 ships. Each one appears to be more advanced than our most powerful battleships. Emperor Vor opened his eyes and stared at the holographic display showing human ships scattered throughout his empire. For the first time in 60 years of rule, he truly understood what it felt like to be afraid. Fleet Admiral Sam Mitchell stood in the command center of the UES Liberty, humanity's flagship. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of over 3,000 human ships spread across space in perfect formation. Each ship represented years of secret construction and technological development. Mitchell was a veteran commander who had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. He had gray hair and steady hands that never shook, even when making decisions that would affect the fate of entire civilizations. Admiral, his communications officer called out, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 Zephyrian border stations. They are asking permission to evacuate their personnel. Mitchell nodded. Grant the requests. Make sure they understand that we have no intention of harming anyone who does not pose a threat. Captain Tony Brooks approached the Admiral's command chair. Brooks commanded the Vanguard fleet, 12 ships that would lead the demonstration of human capabilities. He was younger than Mitchell but had earned his position through skill and courage. Admiral, the Vanguard is in position. All ships report ready for the technology demonstration. Mitchell looked at the main display, which showed a map of the Zephyrian Empire. Red dots marked the locations of their major military installations. Blue dots showed the positions of human ships. There were far more blue dots than red ones. Begin the demonstration, Captain Brooks. Target the uninhabited systems as planned. Make sure our message is clear but non-threatening. Brooks saluted and returned to his station. Within minutes, the Vanguard fleet moved toward a star system that contained only asteroids and empty space. The Zephyrians would be watching through their long-range sensors, trying to understand what they were seeing. On the Zephyrian capital world, Emperor Vor and his advisors watched the human fleet movements with growing terror. The humans had more ships than the entire Zephyrian navy, and each ship was more advanced than anything the Empire had ever built. They are moving toward the Keltar system, General Zahn reported. That system has no planets, just asteroids and mining stations. Emperor Vor leaned forward in his throne. What are they planning to do? They did not have to wait long for an answer. The human ships began demonstrating their capabilities in ways that defied everything the Empire knew about physics and technology. One human ship made an entire asteroid field disappear in seconds. Another ship passed through a solid moon like it was made of air. A third ship created what appeared to be a small artificial star that burned for several minutes before safely extinguishing itself. How is this possible? Emperor Vor whispered. Dr. Lisa Morgan appeared on the communication screen in the throne room. She was now serving as humanity's primary contact with the Empire. Emperor Vor, she said calmly, what you are witnessing is just a small sample of human technology. We have had centuries to develop these capabilities while studying your empire from a distance. General Zahn stepped forward. You have been spying on us for centuries? Dr. Morgan smiled. Not spying, General. Learning. We discovered your empire over 200 years ago and began a careful study of your culture, your technology, and your methods of expansion. She paused, letting her words sink in. We were particularly interested in how you treated species that appeared weaker than yourselves. The test 3 months ago confirmed what we suspected. Your empire conquers through fear and overwhelming force. Emperor Vor found his voice. What do you want from us? The display changed to show Admiral Morrison, who was coordinating the entire operation from his command station. We want you to understand that the age of conquest is over, Emperor Vor. There is a better way to expand and grow. Morrison activated a new holographic display that showed star maps beyond the Empire's borders. Your empire controls 10,000 star systems, but there are millions of systems beyond your borders that remain unexplored. Instead of taking worlds from weaker species, why not work together to explore new regions of space? General Zahn studied the star maps with growing interest. You are suggesting cooperation instead of conquest? Dr. Morgan reappeared on the screen. Exactly, General. Humanity has made contact with dozens of species that your empire either conquered or drove into hiding. Many of these species have technologies that could benefit everyone if shared freely. As if to prove her point, the display changed to show ships that were clearly not human in design. These vessels appeared alongside the human fleet, revealing that humanity was not acting alone. Emperor Vor stared at the alien ships. How many species are working with you? Admiral Morrison answered. 47 species have joined our coalition, Emperor Vor. They include races that your empire encountered and dismissed as primitive, as well as species that have been hiding from your expansion for centuries. The Emperor felt a cold realization growing in his mind. The technology demonstrations, those were not just human capabilities. Correct, Morrison confirmed. What you witnessed was the result of 47 different species sharing their knowledge and working together. The ship that passed through solid matter belongs to the Etherian people, whom you encountered 50 years ago and classified as harmless miners. The artificial star was created by the Solari, who have been hiding in nebula clouds to avoid your fleets. General Zahn looked at his datapad, which was displaying technical readouts from the demonstrations. Our scientists estimate that it would take us 1,000 years to develop technology like this on our own. Dr. Morgan nodded. But working together, sharing knowledge and resources, we achieved these advances in less than a century. This is what cooperation can accomplish, General. Emperor Vor stood up from his throne and walked to the great window that overlooked his capital city. Below him, millions of Zephyrians went about their daily lives, unaware that their empire was facing its greatest crisis. You are asking us to abandon everything we have built, he said without turning around. Admiral Morrison's voice was gentle but firm. We are asking you to transform it into something better. Your empire has great organizational skills and vast resources. Instead of using these abilities to conquer, you could use them to explore and build. The Emperor turned back to face the display. And if we refuse? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then you will face the consequences of your choice. But we hope it will not come to that. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us to grow and prosper together. Captain Brooks appeared on a secondary display. Admiral Mitchell, we have completed the technology demonstration. All Zephyrian military installations have confirmed that they witnessed the events. Mitchell nodded. Very good, Captain. Now comes the hard part. Emperor Vor looked confused. The hard part? Dr. Morgan smiled sadly. Convincing your people that cooperation is better than conquest, Emperor Vor. Some of your military leaders will want to fight rather than change. Some of your citizens will be angry about losing their privileged position in the galaxy. General Zahn stepped forward. Dr. Morgan is right, my Emperor. There are already reports of some fleet commanders calling for immediate military action against the humans. Emperor Vor closed his eyes. His empire was fracturing before his eyes. Some wanted to surrender, others wanted to fight, and still others wanted to try negotiating from a position they no longer held. Admiral Mitchell appeared on the main display one final time. Emperor Vor, you have 48 hours to make your decision. We will not attack your people or destroy your worlds, but we cannot allow your empire to continue threatening peaceful species throughout the galaxy. The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in silence. Emperor Vor looked around at his advisors and generals. These people had helped him rule through conquest for decades. Now they had to decide whether they could learn to rule through cooperation instead. The fate of the empire rested in their hands, but the power to choose had shifted to humanity and their allies. Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the great assembly hall on the neutral station that humanity had constructed at the edge of Zephyrian space. The hall was enormous, designed to hold representatives from dozens of different species. Today, it would host the most important meeting in galactic history. Morrison wore his dress uniform, but he carried no weapons. This was not a meeting of conquerors and the conquered. This was a gathering of equals trying to build something new. Dr. Lisa Morgan walked beside him as they entered the hall. She had spent the past week working with Emperor Vor and his advisors, helping them understand what humanity was truly offering. How are the Emperor's people responding to the proposals? Morrison asked. Dr. Morgan checked her data pad. Better than expected. Governor Cole has already agreed to transform his sector into a joint administration zone. Several other regional governors are asking for similar arrangements. Morrison nodded. Governor Cole had been one of the first Zephyrian leaders to understand that cooperation offered more benefits than conquest. His sector was becoming a model for how the new system could work. They entered the assembly hall to find it already filled with representatives. Zephyrians sat alongside humans, but there were also dozens of other species present. Many of these beings had been hiding from the Empire for decades, waiting for a chance to emerge safely. Emperor Vor sat at a large round table in the center of the hall. He looked older than he had a week ago, but there was something different in his eyes. The fear was gone, replaced by cautious hope. Captain Alex Turner approached Morrison's table. Admiral, the final ships have arrived. We now have representatives from 63 different species. Morrison looked around the hall with satisfaction. When this meeting was over, the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Morgan activated the translation systems, and her voice filled the hall in dozens of different languages. Representatives of the galaxy, we gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals seeking a better future. Emperor Vor stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the hall. 3 months ago, I believed my empire was the greatest power in the galaxy. I was wrong. 1 week ago, I believed that strength came from the ability to destroy. I was wrong about that too. He looked around the hall at the faces of dozens of species. Today, I have learned that true strength comes from the ability to build together. A representative from the Etherian people stood up. The Etherians were a species the Empire had encountered 50 years ago and dismissed as harmless minors. Emperor Vor, your people have resources and organizational abilities that could benefit everyone in this room, but we need guarantees that the age of conquest is truly over. Morrison stood to address the assembly. The Galactic Cooperative Federation that we are proposing today will have rules that apply to everyone equally. No member species will be allowed to attack or threaten another member. All disputes will be resolved through negotiation and compromise. General Zahn, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke. Admiral Morrison, what about security? There are threats in the galaxy beyond our borders. Pirates, hostile species from other regions, natural disasters that require military response. Captain Turner smiled. General, that is exactly why cooperation is so important. A combined fleet with ships from 63 different species, each contributing their unique technologies, would be more powerful than any single empire could ever be. Turner activated a holographic display that showed the proposed fleet structure. Zephyrian organizational skills, human strategic planning, Etherian phase technology, Solari energy systems, and dozens of other specialties working together. Emperor Vor studied the display with growing excitement. This fleet would be unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Dr. Morgan nodded. And it would be used to explore new regions of space, protect trade routes, and help species in need. Instead of conquering the known galaxy, we could work together to discover what lies beyond. A small, furry creature from the Keth species raised her hand. The Keth had been hiding in asteroid fields for over a century, avoiding the Empire's expansion. What about species that prefer to remain isolated? We do not wish to be forced into cooperation. Morrison answered gently. The Federation will be voluntary, Representative Keth. Any species that wishes to remain neutral will be protected from interference. The only requirement is that member species agree not to attack or threaten others. Over the next several hours, the representatives worked through the details of the new Federation. Territorial boundaries were redrawn based on voluntary membership rather than conquest. Trade agreements were established that benefited all participants. Most importantly, a joint exploration program was created to map and explore the unknown regions beyond their current borders. Governor Cole stood to address the assembly. 6 months ago, I was planning to invade human space and add their worlds to the Empire. Today, I am working with human administrators to transform my sector into a model of cooperation. The results have exceeded my wildest expectations. He activated his own display, showing economic and social data from his sector. Trade has increased by 300%. Scientific research has advanced faster than ever before. Crime rates have dropped to the lowest levels in decades. This is what cooperation can accomplish. Captain Tony Brooks, who had been monitoring communications throughout the meeting, approached Morrison with a datapad. Admiral, we are receiving requests from over 200 additional species asking to join the Federation. Word is spreading faster than we expected. Morrison smiled. How many of these species were previously unknown to the Empire? Brooks checked his data. About half, sir. It seems that many species have been hiding or living in regions the Empire never explored. Emperor Vor overheard the conversation and looked amazed. 200 species? I thought we knew about every intelligent race in the galaxy. Dr. Morgan laughed softly. Emperor Vor, we estimate that your empire had contact with less than 10% of the intelligent species in this galaxy. Most of them stayed hidden because they were afraid of being conquered. The Emperor sat down heavily in his chair. We missed so much. We could have learned from all of these species, shared knowledge and culture with them. Instead, we made them afraid of us. Morrison placed a hand on the Emperor's shoulder. But you can change that now. The Federation gives us a chance to reach out to these hidden species and show them that the age of conquest is over. As the meeting continued into the evening, the framework of the Galactic Cooperative Federation took shape. Emperor Vor would serve as the first regional coordinator for former Empire space, working alongside human and alien administrators to transform the conquered territories into voluntary member regions. General Zahn would command the Joint Exploration Fleet, using his military experience to lead peaceful missions into unknown space. The fleet would include ships and crews from dozens of species, each contributing their unique abilities to the common cause. Dr. Morgan would head the new cultural exchange program, helping different species learn from each other and build understanding across the galaxy. 6 months later, Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the New Harmony Station, the Federation's first joint construction project. The station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built using technologies from over 40 different species. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from across the galaxy docking at the station. Zephyrian vessels worked alongside human ships, Etherian phasecraft, and dozens of other designs. Crews that had once been enemies now worked together as partners. Emperor Vor joined him at the observation window. The former ruler of the galaxy now wore the simple uniform of a Federation coordinator, and he seemed happier than Morrison had ever seen him. "Admiral," Vor said, "I have received the reports from our first joint exploration mission. General Zahn's fleet has discovered 3 new star systems with habitable worlds. More importantly, they have made peaceful contact with 2 previously unknown species." Morrison nodded with satisfaction. "And both species are interested in joining the Federation?" "Yes, they have been watching our progress and are impressed by what cooperation has accomplished." They watched as a massive construction ship began adding a new section to the station. The ship used Solari energy technology to shape metal with precision that had never been possible before. "Morrison," Vor said quietly, "I owe you an apology. My empire spent centuries taking from others and building nothing of lasting value. In 6 months, this Federation has accomplished more than we did in decades of conquest." Morrison smiled. "Emperor Vor, you did not fail. You learned. That is what makes this Federation possible. Every species here, including humanity, has made mistakes. The important thing is that we are willing to do better." A communication alert sounded, and Dr. Morgan's face appeared on a nearby screen. She was calling from a distant star system where she was helping establish the Federation's newest member colony. "Admiral, Emperor Vor," she said excitedly, "you need to see this. We have made contact with a species called the Architects. They have technology that could revolutionize space construction." The screen showed images of massive structures floating in space, built from materials that seemed to bend light itself. Cities that could house millions of beings, powered by energy sources that the Federation's scientists did not yet understand. "They have been building in the void between galaxies for thousands of years," Dr. Morgan continued. "They are willing to share their knowledge in exchange for joining our Federation." Morrison and Vor looked at each other with wonder. The galaxy kept revealing new surprises, new possibilities for growth and discovery. "Dr. Morgan," Morrison said, "invite them to the next Federation Assembly. It seems our cooperative galaxy is about to become much larger." As the communication ended, Morrison and Vor returned to watching the ships outside the station. Somewhere in the distance, General Zahn's exploration fleet was heading toward unknown stars, ready to discover what other wonders the universe might hold. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it was more amazing than anyone had ever imagined.